Phil, rather than the usual mumbo-jumbo we do on this podcast, why don't we invite in today some experts to talk about our topic, which is year-round school, which Madison is finally going to give a try this fall.
Two experts I know very well.
We have all hands on deck here. We have Owen Hands. Owen, how old are you?
9 years old.
All right. And Claire, how old are you?
5.5.
Wow. Let's round up. We'll say you're 6.
No.
Okay. So what if I were to tell you that instead of having school from September until June, what if we had school year-round? What do you think of that idea?
Yes.
Yeah? It's exciting?
Yeah, Claire already knows because she has school year-round. She only doesn't have school on weekends and Thursdays.
What if you had a long break? You don't like a long break from school? You'd rather be in school?
I would love a long break. Then I could just sit and be lazy and watch my tablet all day.
What if instead of a big summer break, we had just smaller breaks throughout the year? So you'd get more breaks, but you wouldn't get one big long break.
Like you might get a 2-week break in the fall and maybe 3 weeks at Christmas.
Yeah.
There you have it.
And then you wouldn't get bored in the summertime. Did you guys get bored this summer at all?
No, never.
I did.
Well, today on Center Stage, the Wisconsin State Journal's political podcast from the sensible center of Wisconsin politics, we're going to talk about year-round school, Madison diving into it, sort of, and the benefits, concerns, and myths surrounding this sometimes controversial idea. I'm Scott Milfred, the editorial page editor for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And I'm Phil Hands. I'm the editorial cartoonist for the Wisconsin State Journal.
And we are half of the State Journal editorial board.
The better looking half.
Well, there's the bell. Even at year-round school, Phil, the kids get to go out for recess. So we'll bring back our experts later. For now, let's talk about Madison and its dabble into year-round school.
So it's the dog days of summer right now. The kids have been out of school for almost 6 weeks nowadays. And my kids did some summer camps, and now the summer camps have run their course. We're going on vacation soon, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the summer vacation, it's a long slog.
And it's a time when kids are not necessarily, I mean, they're looking at their devices, and I guess they're reading some information on their devices, but there's not a lot of learning going on.
We make our kids read during the summertime, but that's only because we make them read. Oh, and go to your room and read.
Well, one thing we've been advocating on the State Journal editorial board for a long time is year-round school.
Because, yeah, kids usually, often, they will lose some of the knowledge they've gained over the previous school year during that exceptionally long summer vacation.
Yeah, and lo and behold, Madison is finally moving towards trying out year-round school starting this next month.
Hooray for Madison!
Yeah, except it's not the Madison School District that's doing it.
It's not?
No. It's actually the 2 charter schools that the state has authorized to start in Madison outside the scope of the school district, and it's going to be under the control of the University of Wisconsin system.
So I'm confused here, Scott. So I always thought that I've heard that year-round school is good for kids. It helps them learn more. It keeps them from falling behind. But I thought charter schools were always evil.
Well, that's according to the progressive talking points, but I think what they...
So you're saying that charter schools are doing something that's going to help kids learn better?
I'm afraid I am.
Oh, my goodness. You've shattered my worldview.
This podcast tale begins 6 or 7 years ago when Kaleem Kerr, then the head of the Urban League of Greater Madison, proposed a charter school that would cater to struggling, mostly black and Latino high school students, boys, with a charter school that would run year-round and have lots of other features like longer classes, longer school day, required extracurricular activities, report cards for parents on how well they're doing in getting involved with their children's education.
It was called Madison Prep, right?
Right, and after a long and loud debate over that. The Madison School Board voted it down. One important note I would make on that is that the only African-American member of the school board, James Howard, did vote for it.
So I will say that it's always frustrating. I go back to this. I'm very frustrated with this because Madison, we have some of the worst racial disparities for African Americans and Latinos in the state. I mean, so if you're a black kid in the Madison public schools, your chances of graduating are worse than they are in Milwaukee, which is not great. And here was a school that was supposed to focus on this problem specifically, and the high-minded liberals, whites on the school board in Madison decided that no, this school wasn't a good idea.
That's right. And what's happened now is that the Republicans who control the legislature have opened up a new valve, I guess you could call it, where people who want to do charter schools outside of the school district's control can go to the University of Wisconsin system, and they will oversee the charter rather than the local school district. So alas, that's what Kaleem Care has done, albeit kind of in an upside down way. So originally what his proposal was to start a high school here in Madison for struggling, mostly minority kids. Now what he's doing is he's starting a
preschool and kindergarten, right?
Yes, it's a 4K and a kindergarten charter school. And he's hoping to build from the bottom up now.
Which I think is awesome because, getting to kids early is the best way to achieve success later in life. I mean, sometimes people would argue that, getting people in high school is even too late to really affect change in a kid moving forward. But, if you can give these kids a really good start early in their lives and for preschool and kindergarten, I think it's awesome.
And just to be clear, this is a free public school. It's not a private school, and it's not a voucher school. So let's just talk for a minute then about what year-round school means. I mean, when people hear that, they immediately recoil.
Well, what I hear when I think that is you're going to have kids in school 365 days a year for 27 hours a day, and kids will have no time off. We will stifle all creativity and make them study for mandatory tests on a regular basis.
Yeah, and you actually get pushback from both the left and the right on this. On the left, what you tend to get is teacher unions who think, wait a minute, I'm not going to get my summer break anymore, which is one of the best benefits of being a teacher. And then from the right, when we've talked to the Governor Walker about this at editorial board meetings, his response is always sort of a flip. He says, well, I don't think having kids' butts in the seat more days is the answer to our problems with public education. And generally, neither of those criticisms is accurate for most year-round schools.
Because what we'd like to see in the editorial board is we don't necessarily want more days of instruction. We would like to see we just think that long break that starts
3 months,
beginning of June that goes to the end of August is too long. Let's shorten that break and add in some other breaks throughout the course of the school year.
In the case of the two charter schools opening, for example, I think closest to what we're talking about is the Isthmus Montessori Academy. This is another charter school that
new charter school
that the Madison School Board rejected, and now the organizers of that school went to the state via the University of Wisconsin system and got approved for the charter. And their schedule is going to be, they're going to take 2 weeks off in the fall, 2 weeks off in the winter, and then they're only going to have a 6-week summer break. So they're essentially going to cut the summer break in half.
There's enough time for a camp or two. There's enough time for summer activities like swim team or something like that. But the summer doesn't go on and on and on and on.
And actually, their school year is going to start August 15th.
Yeah.
So they're going to start a little bit earlier. Now, in the case of Kaleem Care's new school, which is the One City, is the name of it, he's going to actually add a lot more days to the school schedule, which is what he was originally wanted to do with the Madison Prep. So he's going to be up over 200 days of classes. So there are going to be more days in class for his students. That just shows you that this varies to some degree. And actually, when you look at a lot of the foreign countries whose students are testing better than American students on most testing, those schools do have more days of classes than we do.
Yeah.
And they don't have this gigantic summer break. So I'm not so sure that we want to say we don't want more days of classes. But I think to answer the governor's point, A, you don't have to have more days of classes, just don't have the giant break. And then B, if you do have more days in classes, who says the kids have to be sitting their butts in the seats?
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, so my daughter is in a preschool right now, and she's been going through school most of the summer. And their school during the summertime, they do a lot of field trips. They get outdoors. They play a lot outside. You know, they're experiencing nature. They go on nature hikes. They garden, and they have a community garden that they work in. So there's lots of things you can do in a school environment that isn't, you know, doing rote memorization and with butts and chairs.
I was just looking at a Brookings report on the summer break, and this pretty much follows a lot of the research that you see. It's very well defined that there is a slip in, we call it the summer slide, or the summer slip, where students test better at the start of summer than they do at the end of summer. Is that surprising?
Not surprising
no.
to me.
And on average, student achievement scores decline over the summer vacation by about 1 month's worth of school year learning. And the decline is sharper in math than it is in reading. And the loss is larger at the higher grade levels. That's not so surprising that you forget your algebra more than maybe your ABCs. And then finally, this is a much bigger issue for lower income kids.
Are you saying this is a social justice issue, Scott?
I mean, it is.
It is, because middle class, upper middle class, families that have lots of resources, they can put their kids in camp all summer long. My son,
we can't afford it all summer long.
All summer long. I mean, my son did a computer camp this year. He did a couple of different swim team camps and stuff like that. Lots of different activities to keep them occupied. But a lot of kids don't have those opportunities, and they spend the summer watching TV or hanging around the block.
That's right. I got a high school kid at a cross-country camp this week, $500 bucks.
Really?
I had my younger daughter went to a horse camp, and that was about $400. So those things are expensive, and you can't do that. So I mean, even my kids, I wish they were busier, and I wish I could put them in more camps. And if there was a year-round schedule, I'll guarantee you they would be in it.
The white upper middle class school board can say, "Well, wait, we don't want year-round school," but it's hurting the kids that are hurting already in our achievement gap issues. That's who it's hurting the most.
Yeah, and a lot of the pushback is, okay, parents like us, we don't want to give up the summer break. We don't want to give up our vacations.
I've been working all summer.
Yeah, I know.
I have a job.
I know, but I'm just saying in terms of taking a vacation.
Yeah.
They think, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to take a vacation with my kids. I don't like that.
Well, I'll tell you what. So what if I had 2 weeks in the fall when nobody else is going on vacation to go on vacation? That sounds awesome to me. I tried to go down to Florida a couple years ago for spring break, and the airfare was through the roof because everybody in America had the same week for spring break. What if I had 2 other weeks some other time? It'd be great for us.
The other thing you often hear is, hey, let's let kids be kids. Summer vacation is important. They're not just supposed to sit in front of a book all day. They're supposed to get out and use their imagination and play, and they're putting on too much weight. Obesity's a problem. Why are you taking away summer vacation from them, Phil?
Well, I mean, a lot of kids just sit in their iPads the whole time, or their devices, or whatever they have during the summertime. I think every parent has that issue at some point in summer vacation. Your kids say, "I'm bored. There's nothing to do."
Yeah, usually about the second week. But the point is, you'd still get, even if you went to this Montessori charter school, you're still getting 6 weeks in the summer.
Still getting 6 weeks in the summer.
Plus, you're getting some additional, instead of a spring break, it's a fall break and a winter break plus a spring break.
Yeah.
So you're breaking it up a little bit. What some other districts have found is that you can save money. So this is the little bright underlying point for taxpayers out there who say, "Well, I don't have kids in school. Work them hard. What's the matter with you?" Well, grumpy Mr. Taxpayer, guess what? You can save some money on this deal, because what a lot of schools do is they'll cycle kids through so that when some kids are on break, the other kids are in the school.
Okay.
So what you wind up with is the schools are used throughout the year rather than just sitting vacant for 3 months.
Yeah.
Now, that might not work in Madison because what we always hear, well, we don't have air conditioning in most of the school buildings. Well, hey, we got summer school without air conditioning, so maybe we can do it.
I actually gave a talk in a summer school class. It was hot.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun.
Now let's give the Madison School District some credit here for the summer school program, which appears to be improving. I mean, Madison does offer a 6-week summer school program, and they've been trying to incorporate, and it's an effort that we've supported here at the newspaper, is they have their morning classes, and these tend to be classes that are a little more fun. You don't just sit in a seat all the time. You have more activities. And then in the afternoon, there's recreational activities outside, and they try to incorporate reading into the recreational activities.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a scavenger hunt where you're reading. And then through the Read Up program, kids get 5 free books that they get to pick out and take home and start their library. And so the district has shown some statistics that suggest those kids that are in that program are not sliding over the summer.
That doesn't quite sound like butts and chairs to me, Scott.
No, it's not. No. But the problem with summer school in Madison isn't that we're not doing a great job trying to teach kids in the summer and help them catch up.
Yeah.
It's that around half of the kids who are invited to summer school because the teachers say you really need to catch up, their parents don't send them.
Ugh.
So then how are you going to get to them?
Yeah.
Now,
And
if
it's
you
not
had-
necessarily the kids' fault that their parents aren't with it together enough to get them into school.
No. Now the district says they're making strides on that and that they are getting more of the parents to put their kids in. But that's been a major problem. Now, if you had a year-round school schedule, well, you can't opt out of 6 weeks of school if you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So a year-round schedule would solve that problem. They'd be required to go.
Yeah.
It's not just whether or not I want to do it.
I think it sounds good, and I think it's a basic, simple. I mean, it's not. I guess it's not a simple thing. It would take a lot of work and it's a big lift, but it's one of those things. There's a few things all the science says you should do this for kids.
Well, I don't know that all the science says that. I mean, I think there is some. There are some researchers who go out of their way to say this is not a panacea.
Well, nothing's a panacea.
And there are programs, for example, Racine had a year-round school for more than a decade, and it just stopped doing it.
Okay.
And one of the reasons why was that, according to the school board, is a lot of the parents that lived around the school, they didn't want to send their kids there. But the school board was split on that, on whether they wanted to continue it or not. And depending on which school board members you listen to, it either was working or it wasn't.
Yeah.
And the main argument was, hey, we'd have a more streamlined district if we were all on the same schedule. However, Toma is starting year-round school. La Crosse has been doing it. Milwaukee's been doing it. There are lots of examples of it happening. And from the research I've looked at, they say those kids tend to do at least as well, if not better, than kids who have longer breaks, particularly the lower-income kids.
Well, we should talk about why we don't have year-round school. The reason we don't have year-round school is because, and maybe I'm wrong about this, Scott, but I've always heard the reason we have a big summer vacation is so that kids can help out on the family farm.
Or, in Wisconsin, at the resort.
Okay.
Because we're a tourist state.
So I don't have a family farm. Do you have a family farm?
I have a garden.
I mean, I have a
but
garden,
the kids
too.
don't help much.
The kids don't do anything.
But you're right. It started as an agrarian society thing where the kids did actually have to work out in the field picking rocks and helping with chores.
They weren't getting dumb on their iPads all summer long.
No, I don't know that they were necessarily getting smart by feeding the pigs either. But they were working, and they were working hard.
They were building character.
And that was required. But we've moved past that. Now, some people say, well, but what about the Wisconsin Dells? We need these workers. Well, gee whiz, every time I go up to the Wisconsin Dells, everybody I speak to at the retail stores and at the resorts has an Eastern European accent.
Yeah, they're all
Pretty
Russian
thick.
spies.
What's more important here, filling some seasonal jobs or educating our children, especially the kids that are of lower income? And by the way, they're hiring high school kids.
Yeah, they're not hiring third graders.
Yeah, I mean, Kaleem's school is going to be the youngest kids, so I think that argument tends to fall flat.
Another issue, what is a low-income parent supposed to do with their kid all summer long?
Yeah, and we have all these programs that do pop up. I mean, the Y does a lot of things. There are places to go that are probably cost less, I guess, than a formal school education. But what you find is that when these school districts that do the year-round schedules, so you say, well, wait a minute, if there's going to be a 2-week break in the fall, what am I going to do with my kids for those 2 weeks?
Well, that's when the summer camp pops up.
Yeah, those things pop up where there's need, is what they find.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to the experts here. Which is better, being in school or being out of school?
Out of school.
Ah, okay. But do you learn anything?
No.
We can play outside and have toys in my school.
Okay, so you learn about toys.
I do learn a lot at school, but last year in math I learned almost nothing. I'd say math is probably my favorite subject.
Wow, awesome.
But art is his least favorite.
So your dad's a cartoonist, but art is your least favorite.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Not exactly chip off the old block.
Not exactly chip off the old block. He's going to go work at NASA and that'll be just fine.
All of the music on our podcast is by Tube Tester, Madison's loudest band from the 1990s and beyond. You can find and follow our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and in all fine stores. No children were harmed in the production of this podcast.